So good to be here today with you, Daryl.
Good to be with you, Dave.
Boy, our friendship goes back a few years. I was thinking back to 2011 when we did our first Good Friday service together.
Yes. And we met before that in different kind of contexts, but yeah, so I've been watching you for 20 years or more.
And likewise, in working together and listening to just the number of years, coming up to 50 years of marriage.
50 years of marriage.
50 years and 50 plus years of ministry.
That's right. I don't look that old, but
no.
Yeah.
I read somewhere the other day, Cheryl and I were talking about how long people were being married, and I said, what are the stats on that? And I found out that if you are 50 years married, only 5% reached that amount of time in marriage. So, and then I was thinking, what would be the stats on 50 years of ministry? It might be less than that.
Yeah.
So I just salute you, Daryl, for all those years in ministry and all those years of marriage, and we're really privileged here to have you come and join us. So all those watching on Regen, whether you're watching online or whether you're watching at a watch party, this is really a privilege for us. Coastal Church and First Baptist Church, we have worked together in the city for a good number of years, so this is really a treat for us. And Daryl, I love the theme that they've chosen this year. What is truth?
What is truth?
I'm hoping to learn a lot as we go through this as well. I know you guys are going to be learning, but we're learning as well. And I don't know if we have all the answers, but we're looking forward to hearing your comments on this topic. I want to start by sharing just a little story, because when Julianne had shared with me, we're going to have this topic, what is truth? I thought of a song that came out a number of years ago by Johnny Cash. It was called What is Truth? Really powerful lyrics. And the song became famous because he sang it for one of the presidents of the United States. It was during the time of the Vietnam War, and Nixon was president. And Nixon had said to Johnny Cash, I want you to sing these songs. They're in the White House, in the Blue Room, and he had songs that he wanted Johnny to sing, but he didn't sing those songs. Instead, he sings his song, What is Truth? And Nixon's sitting there, he's got this frozen smile on his face, because it was kind of a song in response to the Vietnam War.
Yeah, yes.
And then he sang a song about the ballad of this First Nations fellow in the United States who had served in the army, Ira Hayes. And then he sang a song about why I wear black, because I care about the poor and the oppressed. And so this made Nixon very uncomfortable. And what I thought about was the last part of this song, and it so speaks of where we're at today. Daryl, this is what that song says at the end. The young man speaking in the city square, today would say speaking online, is trying to tell someone that he cares. Yeah, the ones you're calling wild are going to be leaders in a little while. The whole world's waking to a newborn day. This is 1972. Whole world's waking to a newborn day, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help the voice of youth find what is truth. The lonely voice of youth cries, what is truth?
Wow.
And I think, today, those watching on Regen, we're still crying, what is truth? So where do we start with this, Daryl? How would you start unpacking what is truth?
Oh, it's huge. And I think the question really became alive for me when I was in university. So I was in university from 1965 to 1969, so before this Johnny Cash song, and studying physics and theoretical mathematics. And so physicists are always asking the question, what is truth? The mathematicians think they know the truth, and they probably do, because an equation works or it doesn't. It's either true or not. But began to grapple with that. And I could tell a long story, we don't have time for that, but finally came to the place where the truth turns out to be a person.
Okay.
And that person is Jesus of Nazareth.
Right.
And you know that that question, what is truth, actually was raised in Jesus' day on Good Friday.
Right.
He's standing before Pilate, the Roman governor, and Jesus makes the statement, everyone of the truth hears my voice. Well, actually, he says, this is why I came into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who hears my voice knows the truth. Pilate says to him, what is the truth? Now, you might know a lot of people have interpreted Pilate's question as a cynical question. As a politician, he's saying to this, carpenter, this loser who's going to get crucified. What is truth? I don't think so. I think Pilate was so taken by the way Jesus was handling the suffering, by the way Jesus treated his persecutors. So when Jesus says, I came to bear witness to the truth, Pilate's going, oh, I'm hearing something different.
Right.
What is truth? And it turns out he is truth. He is the truth. Now, the word truth in the Greek is interesting. It means authentic, or you could actually translate that the real deal. So Pilate's asking, so what's the real deal? I think politicians are asking that question in our time.
I think so.
Right? So how does reality really work? And Jesus says, I came to witness to the really real. I am the really real.
Wow.
And so for me, in that pilgrimage then, now more than 50 years ago, the journey has been to understand Jesus as the truth, and then to understand everything else in light of that truth.
So how do we get our head around that? Like you say, the truth is a person. Because the whole time, we're always taught, truth is a concept, and even it's my truth. You have your truth, and that's what the world says today. Well, I'm just living out my truth. So how do we respond to a world that says, we all have our own truth, and now we come on and say, no, truth is a person. How do we help people get over that hump?
Good question. The way I would put it is this. Every human being is a disciple of someone.
That's good.
Every human being is a follower of someone. So when Jesus calls us to follow him, he recognizes we're following somebody, and he's proposing himself as the real deal. So as I dialogue with people, and they ask, well, why Jesus? I want to begin with, well, who are you following, and why are you following that person? Why does that person, in your mind, have the corner on the truth? Tell me about that person. Tell me about that idea. Tell me about that philosophy. Tell me about that whatever. And then we can get into dialogue with, what may I tell you, then why I choose to respond to the invitation of, I am the truth, follow me. So everyone everyone has some source of truth. Now, the question is this truth the real deal? Does it really work in life? Now, should I go on just a moment there?
Can I just say this? Because I think for those that are watching, I don't know if you caught what Daryl was doing there, but I think it's brilliant, because you said to that person, we say, well, you're saying you have your truth, but where did you get to? Who are you following? And so your first posture is to listen.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times we'll push back because they see Christians like, you're just going to shove your version of truth at me. But once you start them talking and they share who they're following, it doesn't take long and Jesus shines.
He shines. If indeed he is the truth, and we believe he is, the truth is self-authenticating. That I am the light. Let's kind of a synonym. I'm the light. Light doesn't have to defend itself.
Very good.
Light doesn't have to explain itself. Light just shines, and truth just shines. The human heart, even a sinful human heart, has a truth thermometer.
That's a good way to put it.
It can smell the truth. And everyone in their quest for truth is smelling parts of it. And doing their best. I think most young people right now are doing their best with what they know. And Jesus knows that, so he doesn't beat us up, but he offers himself as that truth. Now, for me, as I've thought about it, so why does Jesus get to be the truth?
Yeah.
And the way I answer is, no one said the kinds of things Jesus said, and no one did the kinds of things Jesus did. Now, in Religion 101, in most universities, you will get the teaching that all religious leaders are basically saying the same thing.
Correct. That's what you hear.
I respectfully disagree. That's not true. That's not true. I would say to to anyone, and to the professor, I don't think you've read the religious documents faithfully, because that simply is not true. No one is saying the kinds of things Jesus says. No one.
Yeah.
Read the Sermon on the Mount. Who says love your enemies? Who says pray for those who persecute you, etc.? Who uses the I am sayings? No
Yes.
one. Who says I am the Son of Man? We could go into that. That's a huge title, and no one in history ever used. So no one said the things Jesus said. And then no one did the things Jesus did. And I'm not referring just to miracles, because the God has empowered others to do miracles. I'm referring to the fact that Jesus understands the human condition differently than anybody else. He sees us as captive to forces beneath our dignity. We're trapped. And our culture knows about that.
Yeah.
We're addicted. And we're addicted to stuff that is not human, that is deep in us. And we need someone to rescue it from us. And only Jesus talks about the fact that he can rescue us from that. And this is the big one. This is the thing that really turned me to say, okay, this person is the truth. As I read it, he's the only leader in the religious and philosophical world who claimed to be able to do anything about death. And so I say to people, whatever your source of truth is, whoever you want to follow, ask them how they deal with death. Only Jesus knows how to deal with death. And so that's why I put all the marbles in the basket with him.
So how would other religious leaders say they deal with death? Let's break that down a bit compared to how Jesus deals with death.
Well, as I understand it, Buddha would say it's an illusion.
Okay.
Life's an illusion. The way you deal with death is tune out. And that's a temptation for a lot of people right now. Tune out in a lot of different ways. And some harmful, some just innocent, but tune out.
Yeah.
Mohammed, you've got to work your way. You've got to earn your moving into the heaven, and you don't know for sure.
Right.
You don't have any clue about how it's going to go until the end. The Hindu would, again, similar to Buddhism, would say that you just go on into another form of existence. You live that form of existence, and then you go on to another, and to another, and to another, and to another. So there's endless wheel of get born, die,
Right.
get born, die, get born, get die, but never resolve death and defeat it as an enemy. Nobody talks that way. Nobody thinks that way, and nobody acts that way. But Jesus. And so
Nobody said I am the resurrection and the life either.
not that I know of.
No.
I haven't read every book in the world.
No. But that's a unique claim to Jesus again.
Absolutely.
And going back to, in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, I am a number of times. You've heard it say, but I say. And then, maybe we can go to John 14:6, his classic statement where he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am, and I mean only me. I mean, it was such a strong statement. Maybe let's just unpack that verse a bit. John 14:6, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Those three things, the truth, the way, and the life. What are your thoughts on that?
How they fit together?
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good question, because we recite those three in a row. And knowing how Jesus teaches, he always has some connection there.
Right.
Now, my feet, how would I do that? Let's take I am the truth as the middle one. Way, truth, life. And let's take truth now as real deal.
Okay.
Do you buy that? That's a way of looking at it. I'm the real deal. And I will lead you in the way that is the real deal. Everybody's looking for the way. What's the way to human flourishing?
Yeah.
What's the way to peace in my soul? What's the way to reconciliation with broken relationships? What's the way to be free of my addictions? I, the real deal, will lead you on the real way. And it turns out to be him again, but he's also pointing to that, I think, his teaching. And then the life, the real life. In the Greek language, there are two words for life. They're both translated in the English as life. They are bios and zoe. Bios comes into the English language in biology, zoe in zoology. Very appropriate university words. Bios life is the life that we get from our parents. It's a good life. Amen? But it decays. It runs down.
Yeah.
It dies. Zoe life is a life that is God. God has Zoe, is Zoe. It cannot run down because it's eternal life. It's the real life to which the bios life points. So I'm the real deal. I'm going to show you the real way, and I'm going to give you the real life. Come follow me. Give me a shot. I'm going to show you. I can do this.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about when Jesus says that too, because if I remember correctly in John 14, he's telling them, I'm going away, and and Thomas is like, oh man, where are you going? He's thinking in such earthly terms. Yeah. And maybe sometimes we have a hard time understanding truth and way in life because we're like Thomas. We try to frame everything with our limited earthly perspective. How big a step of faith is it to take Jesus' statements, truth, way and life? Isn't this a big step of faith? Like you graduated and studied math and physics, but at some point, there's also this step of faith because we can't always piece this together logically. You have to apply faith to accept this. Or am I wrong on that?
Oh, no, you're right. But faith is not a mere jumping off a cliff.
Sure.
Faith involves some rational thinking. And I'm hoping I was illustrating that along the way.
Yeah.
By investigating, okay, why should I trust Jesus? I do need to take a step of faith. So that's the only way I'm going to find out if this is finally true. But why should I? And I was trying to say there are a lot of indications of why you should.
Right.
The biggest one, of course, is the resurrection.
Right.
And that's in the book of Acts, which is the early church. You know that they always go back to the resurrection because Jesus said, I will rise on the third day. And he did.
Right.
That validates, in my mind, everything else he said. And that makes him then worthy of me not stepping off the cliff. But sometimes it can feel that way to people. But that makes him worthy of saying, okay, I'm going to give you a try. I'm going to walk your way. And then Jesus himself will validate this is in fact the right way because it's really leading to the real life. So you don't have to abandon your brains to trust him.
Absolutely. He wants us to use our brains, but
absolutely.
Engage it.
Absolutely. And I think good news to all of us who seek, he does not mind questions. He doesn't mind saying, but Jesus, how come if I'm following you, why did what happened to my son happen? Why did my mom die of that? Why did my children get sick of this? Why? And he doesn't mind. And sometimes he'll tell us, and sometimes he'll say, I can only answer that later, but in the meantime, just keep coming down the road with me.
Right. Yeah. That's so important, that way that you lined that up, Daryl, the truth, way, and life. They're so interconnected. Reminds me, a number of years ago, we had a lady who lived in the West End, and she came to church, and very much, all religions point to God, and this is just one of many ways. And so she had a conversation one day after church with me. She says, I like what you had to say, but I disagree with this, because you said Jesus is the way, the truth, and life. There's no other way. And she says, I really have a problem with that. And I said, okay, fair enough. And she became a little heated about that point. It really agitated her. And so I said, well, I think your problem is you haven't done your homework. And then she got even more upset. What do you mean I haven't done my homework? I'm a very well-read person. I
can hear this. Yes.
I said, well, my recommendation is to do more homework and more study around the death and resurrection of Christ, because that really is the hinge for Christianity. Determine if that's true or not. She says, okay, fair enough. Where do I start? So I said, well, read the book Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And there was another old book I had called Who Rolled the Stone Away? So I gave her those books. I said, read that and come back to me. And you know, she did. She read, took her 3 months, and she came back to me. And to her credit, she said, "You were right. He really did die, and he really did rise again." But she had to process it. She had to, think this through. But then there came that step where she says, I am receiving Jesus as the truth. And her life flourished. It was, because I think, in John says, we believe and receive. You can believe, but you have to, there's plus receive equals child of God. And she was believing, but when that moment came where she got her head around and her heart around the death and resurrection and received, it was, she was born again, as we say. That was it.
Happens. Yeah. Sure. Oh, and those books that you recommended are classic. Way to go, Pastor.
I think, if you're watching online or if you're watching watch parties, I really encourage you to, there's such great literature out there, and that really verify the death and resurrection that we were talking about.
Can I recommend
absolutely.
another one? Some of you may have heard the name N.T. Wright.
Yes.
Probably the most famous biblical scholar in our time. And he has a massive book called The Resurrection of Jesus.
Okay.
650 pages. But he covers everything in the New Testament about resurrection. And it's just overwhelming. You have to get done with it and you get down on your knees. So it's a thick reader. Other books would be that you recommended would be a place to start. So.
But that's a good book to have. I think you need some of those books on your bookshelf. And you don't have to know it all, but go through it at least once to nail down that piece. Because that's the key truth that all revolves around. In that verse on John 14:6, somebody asked this question. I thought it was an interesting question, Daryl. How does God the Father connect to this? Like in the concept of the Trinity, how do we bring God the Father into that question?
So you're meaning the fact that before he says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," Jesus says, "He who has seen me has seen the Father. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me." That text. And how does that all go together?
Right, because I think, it's, I guess as we sometimes wrestle with the Trinity, and here's Jesus said, "I am this." And so I think it's good for us just to hear again the fact that there is a Trinitarian approach to this, and he wasn't overriding the Father. This all complements together.
Okay. Yeah, because now Jesus, very good. And now we're getting back to John 14 a little bit better. Now I think I understand the question you were really raising before. I am the way to the Father. So I am the truth, the real deal, and I'll lead you to my Father, who's the real deal.
That's well put.
So to follow Jesus is not to become a Jesus-only person, which is a good thing to do, because Jesus will lead you to the Father, and Jesus will baptize you with his Spirit.
Right.
So once you enter into relationship with Jesus, you're automatically entering into a relationship with the Father and the Spirit. You can't avoid the Trinity with Jesus. In fact, I argue it's Jesus who presents the Trinitarian problem. What do you do with Jesus and you end up with this Trinity? He is one of the three persons of the Godhead, who is sent by the Father, reveals the Father, who is conceived by the Spirit through the Virgin Mary, and who then breathes his Spirit into us. And you get the whole package when you get Jesus.
Another verse I love about truth in Jesus is of course, John chapter 1. He is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with him. And he is the Spirit of truth. And John 14:6, when the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, we beheld his glory. Glory from God, full of, grace and truth? Grace and truth. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Because I think you need both, right? Like you alluded to that earlier on. This is not just a hard, cold truth. Talk about truth and grace for a bit, because boy, I think this generation, our generation, we need this grace factor with the truth. So can you speak into that a bit?
Yeah. We beheld his glory, Glory is of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. I think that text is harking back to Mount Sinai with Moses. You might remember it's in the book of Exodus. You can look at it, it's chapter 34, where Moses cries out, "Show me your glory." And God says, "Hide in the rock, I'll pass by you," and then recites the words, "I am Yahweh your God, who is merciful and compassionate, gracious and truthful," often translated faithful. So I think the text is saying that in Jesus, God is answering Moses' prayer, "Show me your glory," and God says, "Okay, I'm going to come down and I'm going to show you my glory." And just as I said on the Mount Sinai, my glory is full of grace and truth, not one without the other.
Right.
So grace, this unmerited favor of God toward us, does not negate the truth.
Right.
And his truth doesn't erase the grace. They come together. Not as two different feet, but I can't think of the analogy. You cannot separate grace and truth. So that would say to us, when we speak about truth, and Jesus the truth, we do that with grace.
Very good.
And when we give grace to people, that doesn't mean that you just willy-nilly endorse whatever people are doing.
It's good.
You speak the truth. Graciously speak the truth, truthfully offer grace, something like that. So that's a powerful text that's fulfilling huge part of the story that started long, long ago.
Well, you make a really good point there, Joe, because I think in our world sometimes we just give grace, just be grace. But if there's no truth with that, we'll never point them to the Savior. And if it's just hard truth with not a lot of grace with it, we'll push people back. So there's this tender balance where you want to bind both those around your neck, truth and grace. That's one of my favorite verses, that we might see who the Father. Again, as you pointed out, what does this do? This brings us back to what was lost, this intimate relationship with the Father. And he's the way back to that.
Yep.
Let's make it a little more practical as we, our time's gone by really quick. We could talk here for hours on this, Joe. This is so good. The question, today, there's so many different narratives, all these different voices. And we have this big central truth. But sometimes on other matters in life, you say, okay, what is the truth here? Like, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that. How does the Spirit of truth help us in life navigate to what's true and what's not true?
Well, you referenced the Spirit of truth because we started with John 14, which is taking place the night before Jesus dies up in the upper room. Now we go to John 16.
Okay.
Well, actually 14 and 16, where Jesus says, the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things, bring to your remembrance all I said to you. And then in 16:13, but he, the Spirit of truth will come. He will guide you into all the truth. So Jesus has made provision for us by breathing his very life into us, who's going to guide us into the truth about other truths, about other claims. So the Spirit, first of all, wants us to know that Jesus himself is the truth.
Right.
But now, as we deal with these other things, the Spirit promises to help us understand the truth. Now, in my experience, it has been, this will be another big controversial statement made for people, but I know I've gotten to the truth on these other issues if I am in sync with Jesus. Any other truth is going to resonate with the truth.
It's good.
So, like right now, oh my goodness, social media and all the stuff that's going around. I mean, you can get dizzy. So we want to ask, okay, what does this claim, this conspiracy theory, this claim, whatever, how does that square with the character of Jesus? Jesus doesn't speak that way.
Right.
Jesus would not encourage people to go down that road.
Right.
Jesus doesn't encourage people to act in those ways. So I disregard that. That's not true. because it's not consistent with the truth.
Right.
And turn that on myself. My own thinking about different issues or my own actions. Come on, Daryl, is that congruous with what you see in Jesus? Well, if it's not congruous, then it's not true. It's not the real deal.
It's not the real deal. And, I keep going back to his, I call it the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' TED Talk. I think it's because it's just so brilliant, of course. And everything he has is kind of boiled down into that sermon. But in there, he says, you'll know them by their fruits. And I think in all, we have these voices that come at us. And sometimes we have to stop and, I think we have to just wonder, and I'm speaking to our people online and that are at the watch parties, when we're saying, what voice do I listen to? What is the fruit of that voice? Take some time to check it out, like you said, because there's a character of Jesus, and that character always is a reflection of truth. And sometimes you've got to ask, what is the character of this person? What's the fruit of this person? Where are they coming from? Is this the way he would act? No, Jesus wouldn't act that way. Okay, well then I'm going to be very careful to what I'm listening to there.
Yep.
When Jesus said 15 times, he who has an ear to hear, let him hear. So it's not just hearing, but it's, and there's so many, like you say, so many voices, we have to be careful who we're hearing. And that means, ultimately, I have to take time to get alone with Jesus. And if we don't have that anchor of a prayer life, because he says, my sheep hear my voice.
And where do you hear it?
Right.
And now that's another discussion. How do we know this book to be true? But that's what we believe. It bears witness to Jesus, the truth. And I'm not going to know what all the other truth claims are until I've soaked in here. So my encouragement to our generation is regularly unplug. You've got to just turn it over for an hour or more. At least an hour a day. I know that's probably people go, I don't have an hour a day. Yeah, you do. How much time do we waste listening to what's not true? I don't mean to be putting it down, but put it away so you can soak in here, and then you can pick it back up. And you go, oh, now your truth thermometer is working again.
You're 100% right, Daryl. I think that really is the crux of it. We're saying what is truth and what isn't truth. How do I know it in the world today? You have to remove the distractions, and if you will, then that compass will work on the inside of you. But if you're filling your thought and your minds with all kinds of other stuff, and you're not spending that hour alone with the Lord, you're not going to be able to discern what is truth and what isn't. And today, we probably need this more than any other time in history, in my opinion. Just because there's so much information coming at us, not only use that word again, it's unprecedented how much comes at us. So we really need that time with the Spirit, in the Word, in prayer. And then I think he will guide us. He'll say, don't go there. You can see the fruit. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Stay here, and I'll walk you through it. We look ahead, and we could say, these could be really challenging days. It could be really dark. But I don't believe with Jesus. He'll walk us through. He'll always give us light, even in dark times. The light will be lighter. And I think the most important thing is that we have that relationship with him. If we don't have that relationship with him, if we haven't received him, then we'll never be able to make it through these times. Otherwise, it can be very challenging. But with him, we can know the truth and walk in the truth.
Yes, we can. Even as hard as that is, at least we know we're on the path. We're on the way.
We're on the way.
We're on the way to the life. Because we're standing in the truth.
Standing in the truth. Man, Daryl, our time's gone by really quick here.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And we could talk for hours about this, and I know we've just scratched the surface, referred to a few passages. I think we landed at a good place here at the end. It's really that Spirit of truth that guides us. And that only comes when we acknowledge who Jesus is, accept it into our life, and choose to follow him. And I'd love it if Daryl would pray with you guys. And if you've never received Christ, Daryl maybe can explain that, and he'd love to lead you in a prayer today.
Okay, I'm thinking about you who might be struggling with all that you've heard us say. Your heart's been warmed in some ways, and you said this does have a ring of truth to it. So this is how I would encourage you to pray. You could just follow along and maybe repeat this to yourself. Jesus, I don't understand everything I've heard.
I don't understand everything I've heard.
But I like what I've heard. And so I welcome you into my life. Come as truth.
Come as truth.
And lead me into truth.
And lead me to truth.
Overcome my doubt.
Overcome my doubt.
Overcome my fear.
Overcome my fear.
And draw me deeper into your life.
And draw me deeper into your life.
And show me the way.
And show me the way.
Amen.
Amen. Daryl, thank you for being with us today on Regen as we've been talking about what is truth. We're going to keep unpacking this all summer long and the rest of our life, but what you've added today has been fantastic. So thank you for doing that. My good friend Daryl Johnson, Pastor Daryl Johnson. So we'll turn it back to our Regen hosts and hope that you have an amazing, amazing evening.
Bless you.